There are many things that an athlete faces that many people don't discuss. Many of these factors are dangerous for the elite level gymnast, and age is one of them. For someone to be elite, they must give their whole childhood up to gymnastics. They must eat, breathe, and sleep gymnastics. They must rise at the crack of dawn to begin their morning workout and limit their freedom. To have a paid job, the minimum age in most states is 15 or 16. On rare occasions, 14 is acceptable, but not normally recommended. Most children begin at the age of 15 or 16, but for gymnasts, they begin as young as 8. When you compare the number of hours spent in the gym, it begins as a part-time job ranging between 15 to 20 hours. But when they get to the elite level, it turns to a full-time job at 34 to 40 hours a week. And this doesn't include places like the Karolyis, who got away with more hours back in the 90s. And that's just it. These are children. Children who need sleep, rest, time to socialize, and allow them to develop cognitive skills. Shannon Miller has grown up in the gymnastics spotlight, and that was all she knew. In a 1993 article, she stated that she has grown close to Dominique Dawes, and that once after a meet, they skipped the banquet to have fun. When asked what they did, Miller replied that they did conditioning, specifically stretching and push-ups in their hotel room, probably because the children grew up only knowing gymnastics. And their only goal after becoming elite is to get an assignment. A national team member must be 12 or older to compete at an international meet. At the age of 12, children will be competing in another country with unsupervised parents before they even get their first period. And although parents are allowed to watch the meet, USAG limits how often they can see their children. Parents are normally not allowed to stay in the same hotel during the traveling meets for national members because it can cause distractions. Even for minors in other countries, they request other hotels for parents. Although this can be a distraction for some kids who have helicopter parents, it can also be destructive because the parents don't know what's going on. Minors should always be allowed to have their parents at the time, with no exceptions. If minors were allowed to have their parents nearby more, it may prevent less injuries, less abuse, and better communication. All that make a gymnastic career much more stronger. But coaches in the organization see past this and decide that winning and the fast pace is better in the end goal. And age has been a problem in gymnastics since the 1980s, when the minimum age was raised from 14 to 15 to help protect young athletes whose bodies were still developing from serious injuries. The International Gymnastics Federation, or FIG, raised the minimum age to its current 16 in 1997, with Dominic Moceanu being the youngest gymnast to go to the Olympics for USA. Gymnasts who go to the Olympics are old enough to drive a car, but not old enough to make a legal decision. Going to the Olympics means, again, going to another country without your parents and more pressure and responsibility than before. And the more spotlight that someone is under with the gymnastics, the more they need their parents to help protect and guide them. Based on my research, the Olympic Committee and USAG should change the age for international meets and the Olympics for 18 or older. If they change the age, this may prevent injury because it gives the bodies more time to mature and recover. If they change the age, it may allow gymnasts to have a longer career. Texas Dreams offers a homeschool option according to the End of the Perfect 10 book interview with Chris Burdett. Chris found this to be a better solution, class in the gym, so it was easier to space out practices for gymnasts. In the book, though, it still says having classes in the gym created problems with training hours and learning hours. For an art project, Kim said creating routines were considered their art project. Being homeschooled also limits their exposure to extracurricular activities and school events. Although the Olympics is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it's questionable for us to force children to give up their childhood because the sport requires them to be young for them to qualify at the elite level. Shawn Johnson's parents did not allow homeschool. Shannon Miller's parents did not allow homeschool. Jordan Weaver's parents enforced public school as long as they could and discussed her being vetoed of PE since she was training many hours a week for gymnastics. There's one thing that these parents all have in common. Although parents have had to work hard with school district on missing assignments, making up tests, and being dismissed early, They valued their children's education and future more than the sports career. They know that once their sports career is over, that their personal career may suffer. Shawn Johnson's parents and Jordan's have both stated that although it was a hard process, it was worth it. These gymnasts who are homeschooled are sheltered, heavily sheltered at that. All they know is gymnastics. The only people you see are gymnasts, said Heidi Kay, a 1989 U.S. team member. The only people you talk to are gymnasts and coaches. Socially, you have no idea what the hell is going on in the real world. You're so isolated. Being young in the spotlight also creates safety concerns for young gymnasts. In a 1990 article, it stated that Brandy Johnson experienced first-hand underside of being a celebrity. She has had her life threatened on more than one occasion. She has had strange men follow her home and regularly receives gifts from people that she does not know, including an anonymous birthday present of roses from South Africa. In 2010, Shawn Johnson experienced her first stalker while working on Dancing with the Stars. This man, now arrested, tried to jump over a fence and walk into the studio where Shawn was practicing. Police discovered duct tape, loaded guns, and a poem for Shawn Johnson in the stalker's car. "No matter what happens," written to Shawn, "I will always love you." There are so many men in this world who value love with the appropriate age group, but the small number of men out there, there must be accountability through the support team that watches over these athletes. Shannon Miller's support group was a great example of this. In 1994, Shannon would witness one of many stalker experiences in her life. In this one, Steve Nuno took the initiative at physically confronting the man and made him move over so Shannon would feel safer during the meet. Her parents also monitored her fan mail and only made her aware of situations that they felt were necessary to know. The 21st century has provided us with various social media platforms that allow us to connect with others in many different ways. Many professional athletes like Michael Phelps have a PR team to help monitor, but these athletes are not just juniors. These athletes are adults who know how to handle these comments. And these adults have grown up learning what they should and should not say when dealing with this feedback. And if one happens to question their intentions, their PR team will step in to prevent them from acting out of line. But in gymnastics, it's different. Most gymnasts on the elite level will not sign professionally because it prevents them from getting a college scholarship. This also means that most gymnasts won't get a PR team to help guide them. And most of these gymnasts are minors, who are still learning social cues and proper etiquette. Something that could also be limited in homeschooling process if it's through a poor program that doesn't fit their needs. In 2016, Michaela Skinner, 16 at the time, was frustrated with her placement at the Olympic trials. Now older and more mature, she still gets hateful comments from something that she had done over 5 years ago. In 2016, there was a big controversy of why Michaela was an alternate over Gabby Douglas. Gabby Douglas, USAG knew bringing her onto the team would threaten those like China or Russia, who were the biggest competitors at the time. So, even though Gabby Douglas had a poor performance on night one, falling off of the beam on a single full turn, they denounced others like Michaela Skinner. Before the meet began, they already decided that Gabby would be on the team. How could they not? With a reputation like Gabby, Team USA would again be a force to reckon with. This angered the gymnastics community, and a storm formed on social media. People began bashing the organization for selecting Douglas and attacking Douglas for accepting a spot on the team. Michaela was one of them. A fan had taken a picture of the Olympic team and cropped Michaela Skinner's face over Douglas, indicating that this was the dream team. Some people took it as a form of racism. Then Michaela would begin retweeting this picture along with a string of other racist emojis. Though Skinner was not chosen on the team, it was evident that her victim card was slowly diminishing based on her professionalism. Was this bound to happen with the situation? Of course, fans would storm on social media, but not so for the average athlete. When children are young, they don't realize the repercussions of a tweet. They don't understand that you can't just delete a post. It's out there forever for people to see. And if someone can remove it from their account, people will still remember what you shared. When athletes are children, it also increases their popularity. Shawn Johnson's YouTube channel holds almost 2 million subscribers. Simone Biles holds almost 7 million followers on Instagram. Even the retired Aly Raisman has over 1 million followers on Twitter. Is it bad for us to allow children on social media? No. But is it bad to expose children on social media if it's not monitored? Yes. Children face so much pressure when they are in the spotlight, and they need to have parents monitor their news feeds. They need PR to step in when it's needed, and if the parents feel their child needs a PR team, then it must be done. They need to rebel against coaches if coaches tell them to post bad things, like Maggie Haney. Among athletes being uneducated on how to use social media, they are also exposed to cyberbullying outside of their competition. Although Gabby Douglas was selected over Michaela Skinner, Douglas didn't have the best ending in Rio. Douglas flew on bars and helped the team get their third team gold. On the outside, she was having the time of her life. But on the inside, she was battling hate comments. The attacks came throughout the Olympics. They attacked her for silly things like not jumping and cheering hard enough for teammates, or not having her hair straight enough for competition. I mean, you do the Olympics for your country, and you do it for yourself, and you do it for other people. And I step back and I'm like, wait, what did I do to disrespect the people? How have I offended them? What have I done? When I stand back, I'm like, what? I was standing in respect for USA. I'm coming out there representing them and to the best of my abilities. So how would I be in disrespect? Douglas stated in 2016. If only they could have seen what they had done, forcing a 20-year-old woman to tears for something that many athletes witness. People, both adults and young adults, don't understand how harsh mean tweets can be to children when they're in the spotlight. Their fragile hearts are influenced by any advice given to them. They hurt, they listen, and they replicate it. Michaela would later send an apology on Twitter. I'm so sorry if I offended anyone. I was in the wrong by retweeting that tweet. I'm so grateful to be part of this team. Go USA! When Simone Biles withdrew from the 2020 Olympic team finals, people were shocked. The 2016 Olympic all-around champion was expected to medal in almost every event, leading her team to gold glory. But while preparing for USA's first rotation, something seemed off. Her steps seemed different, smile fading, and emotionally drained. Preparing for an Aminar vault, Simone stood there frozen. As she ran down the runway, she pushed off the vault like a torpedo flying. But she under-rotated, completing a merely 1.5 twist instead of a 2.5, the Aminar. The audience was stunned. How could this happen? She was the best gymnast in the world, and arguably the best in gymnastic history. With the goat illustrated on her leotard all season, you had to think this was only a nightmare. Often, parents and coaches put pressure on their athlete to reach her personal goal. And as they start to work up their way from levels to elite, they focus more on winning and less on life development. Then, when they start winning, the media puts pressure on the athletes. It's impossible for gymnastic commentators to focus on any other athlete than their next it girl. The public was more fixated on Nastia's 2012 comeback than they were on people like Kyla Ross, who would later make the Olympic team. Nastia would crumble, crying in Marta's arms. Her Olympic career was over. It got so out of hand that people would call NBC requesting them to stop filming Biles when she was resting at a meet because it was missing out on other people competing. Being in the spotlight means that you have to be a role model for others. From a young age, Dawes recognized the impact she could have. Whenever she wanted to quit gymnastics, she thought about the letters she received from fans, and it motivated her to continue. She didn't want to let them down, because she was a role model to them. Athletes are supposed to be role models to people who are their same age, maybe even older than them. And why is this? It's the culture. It's because the elites are the darlings of the Summer Olympics. Their small bodies flying wows others because of how dangerous their skills are. Everyone is watching their every move, so they must stand tall, smile pretty, and don't speak unless told to do so. Shannon Miller stated in 1993, "I don't want to get caught saying the wrong thing," referring to questions of why she is so quiet and unresponsive with reporters at meets and guest appearances. Because of this, her mother has resorted to interview practice sessions. Claudia stated in the article, "She comes up with these incredible answers, and I will say, 'Shannon, why don't you answer this way, with all the press?' She replies, 'What if it hurts somebody's feelings?'" Pressure makes children lack confidence in themselves, in the performance, in the professionalism, and in themselves. When Simone Biles withdrew from the team in all-around finals in Tokyo, it opened a deeper discussion on mental health in the pressure cooker that is the U.S. gymnastics program. It made the public take a step back and think, did the pressure of being number one get to her? Was there a physical injury that caused an uncharacteristic vault? Was she safe to compete? Would she become another victim of the hundreds of vault injuries? In a sport where pressure exercises so much power over athletes, other gymnasts marveled at Biles' ability to make her own decision. And to be clear, Biles' coaches were supportive of this. Biles herself spoke of a system that had worn her down and drained fun from competition. Is it worth it? Are the medals worth putting big shoes to fulfill little feet? If NBC spent an equal amount of time on developing new athletes than on the current world champion, maybe there would be less gymnasts breaking under the pressure. Jordan Weber was crowned to be the 2012 Olympic all-around champion, yet she would later struggle to qualify for a spot in the all-around, Douglas then taking her spot along with Raisman. Can we reverse this problem? Not necessarily, but we can improve it. And it starts with the parents and coaches. If they refrain from putting the pressure on winning and more on personal goals, it could prevent gymnasts from losing confidence when under pressure. They need to know that although placing second or fifth may define them as a gymnast in that moment, that it doesn't mean it defines them as a person. Because they are more than just athletes, they are also people.